This is my interview with Wendy Ashall, Director of Teaching and Learning for the Global Studies Department. Before we spoke, I wasn't sure what to expect, since the School of Global Studies and my own, Life Sciences, seem like huge opposites. However, I found her tremendously easy to speak to and very forthcoming about how the university systems operate to work against hierarchy and in favour of putting the student perspective at the forefront of what they do. I'd highly recommend listening to this episode, regardless of which department you're studying in, since we spend the majority of the time discussing how she works with her colleagues across departments and what these roles do. And so, without any further ado, here's my interview with Wendy Ashall.
Okay.
Hi, Wendy. Yeah, well, thank you very much for agreeing to an interview today. It's great to meet you. So why don't we start off? So tell me about your role. Who are you?
Okay, so my name is Wendy Ashall and I am the Director of Teaching and Learning in the School of Global Studies. I'm also a module convener on a second year anthropology course, and I also convene a foundation year module. And I've been at the University of Sussex for since 2015, I think, but
Okay.
I was a student here. I'm also doing my PhD at the moment in education and social work.
Oh, wow.
So
Interesting.
I have a dual, so I'm a member of the faculty and I'm also a student.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, yeah, and across departments as well. That's interesting. Oh, brilliant. So what's the Director of Teaching and Learning role? What does that involve?
Okay, so on paper my job is to oversee all teaching, learning and assessment that happens in the school. So I chair the school education committees that meet twice a term, and that is the body that approves new modules, new courses, changes to modules, changes to assessments. I also chair the exam boards for the school. Though formally for those I'm the deputy chair, so I work very closely with our professional services colleagues to make sure that all the grades are correct, that the grades aren't out of line with historical grades for any module, and to identify any problems that might be going on. I also then liaise with the external examiners as well that also provide that quality check for assessments in the school.
Okay. Okay, interesting. So how does that... What's particular then about the Department of Global Studies? Then?
Well, we're the best school in the university, clearly. But I would say that, wasn't I? I think one of the things that I love about the school mostly is we are really focused on social justice. So lots of the amazing researchers that I get the pleasure of working with are out trying to find out more about things in the world and then change it for the better, and I think that really feeds into the teaching that we do. So, you know, some of the lovely modules we offer on activism or climate change or sustainability are training up the next young people that are going to go out and then hopefully do really good things in the world, and that's what makes, I think, the school really vibrant and an exciting place to be.
Yeah, it's certainly very much part of the Sussex reputation, the spirit. You know, being around, being part of the life sciences department myself. It's we're not necessarily encouraged to go and make real world change in the same way, but it's unmissable. You know, seeing protests, seeing groups of students really caring, getting invested in things. What's happened? What's happened this year then? Well, it's been a really interesting project.
Okay, so one of the projects that I've been involved in this year is a project around embedding employability, which sounds quite dull, and in some respects it is, but it's also really important. So what we're looking at as a school is if we can improve the outcomes for our students. So not just that they have a brilliant time with us, that they learn loads and they're stimulated and engaged and they get good grades, right? Because that's what we want. Yeah. But also that they are really clear about what skills they've learned, so that can feed forward into what kind of CV they write and help them get a job at the end of the day, because we do want them to get a good job. So I've been liaising with colleagues from the employability team and actually with academic developers and our placement officer and our director of student experience to flesh out and then actually enact this action plan that we've got within the school. So we started last September. We've just done a massive audit of our anthropology provision to see where employability what skills, what transferable skills, what knowledges are embedded in that teaching, so that we can then flag it, make it more explicit, so that students can say, I did that module helped me learn this.
I see. Yeah.
Yeah. So that, because sometimes students aren't always sure. I mean, they know what knowledge they've learned, but they're not always clear on what skills they've learned. So we're trying to make that more explicit.
Ah, interesting. So what kind of skills then? What's a good example from the field?
I mean, there's the one of the joys is we started with anthropology, which is a really reflexive discipline. So it's constantly looking at its own formation, how it's been shaped by power dynamics, and how complicated the development of that discipline is, and the multiple uses that discipline can be applied to. So not all of our anthropology students are going to go off and become anthropologists, but this understanding of cultural difference and of complex underpinnings of social real world problems are all skills that and knowledge that employers really want, and that interrelationships, how to build relationships with people, oral and written communication skills, analysis skills, it's all there. It's just making it really clear for students.
Yeah, absolutely. Fascinating. Yeah, brilliant stuff. I see there being a real importance with there being a lot of protests and a real kind of vibrant heart of going for justice, for what's an interesting problem, societal problem to be addressed, and it can almost be easy to get carried away as a student and not think about the career. Is that kind of where
I think we need to get better at supporting students to see the kinds of careers they can go into. So we know that. I'm sticking with anthropology just because that's my department, but also because we've just done that audit, and we will be doing the same for development and for geography and for international relations. But we can only do so much in a year. But I think lots of our anthropology students are really fired up about the world, and they want to go and work for the third sector, like charities, NGOs, aid agencies, etc. And it's making sure that we've really done our best to equip them, that they know that they can sell themselves in what is quite a competitive set of employment industries.
Yes, yeah. I was having a conversation with a friend earlier today about the sustainability sector, how it's growing, but it's also quite small, and getting a good and an interesting job can be quite a challenge.
Yeah, it's interesting you raised that. So I was just involved in a working group where we wrote a new course for the geography department, which is a BSc on climate change and sustainability. So that's one of the other things I would do as Director of Teaching and Learning, is I supported the head of geography and other members of faculty from the geography department to write this new course and get it approved by an external and by the portfolio and approval committee that we have at the university. So that course has now been approved, and it will be offered not next academic year but the following year. So we will, because we need more of these kinds of courses that equip students with an understanding of how complicated climate change is, but also how the sustainability agenda is subject to power dynamics, just as everything else is. So who are the key stakeholders? Who gets to determine what kinds of approaches to sustainability actually take place? The gender setting side of it as well.
Absolutely. All very, very interesting. So what was it then that motivated you to become the Director of Tutoring and Learning?
Good question. I really like teaching. I really, really like teaching. Teaching's what gets me excited. So my background was I did anthropology as a student at Sussex, and then I did my master's at Sussex in what is now MAR, but it wasn't MAR back then, in social and political thought. And then I went into teaching in further education. And I love teaching, genuinely love teaching. So I taught in further education for, I think it was 9 years. Don't quote me on that. And then when I joined Sussex, I was predominantly teaching on the foundation year. And I just get excited about teaching and about students and about watching people have those moments where, and a real buzz when I see people's confidence and competencies grow. And I felt that I had something to offer to my school about how we can just improve student experience, really. I know we've got some of the best teachers in the school, and I just wanted to be part of bringing that together and working with the school to make it even better.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Well, that's a really fantastic thing to hear as a student as well, to kind of hear the encouragement from staff. I mean, it's a fantastic thing. Loving teaching to hear as a student. Yeah. So moving on to the sort of more sort of wider departmental stuff. So who do you communicate with? Who's sort of among you in terms of senior staff within the Global Studies department, and who do you communicate with outside the department and the central management? Where do you fit into that?
Okay, so within the school, I work quite closely with the heads of department. So there's 4 departments, so 4 heads. I also work very closely with the head of school, who, for one, is Buzz Harrison. She's our head of school at the moment. And we're just about to get new heads of department, so I'm looking forward to working with some new people. I also work with our Director of Inclusivity and Diversity and our Director of Recruitment. So we all attend monthly school management meetings, which are good fun. I also, did I mention I chair the School Education Committee?
You have now.
Yeah, and we have student representation at that. So that's the means at which is another really important committee in the school. Meets termly or twice a term, and it deals with all the sort of paperwork side of the curriculum and curriculum development. I also, outside of the school, I attend the university education committees, which are a couple of times a term, and that's where we feed up to the sort of the university executive group. So my role is kind of like a bridge between the schools and that central executive group.
Okay, what's that like? Is there ever any tension? Is it kind of an easy communication between the two?
I would say yes. Yeah, mostly. I think there's some. Not everybody's going to agree all the time, right? But I think we're always agreeing on the direction where we want to go, but not necessarily how we want to get there.
I see, yeah.
And you also, at the sort of school, the university level committees, like the University Education Committee, you've got directors of teaching and learning from every school in the university. Now, as you know, you're in life sciences. The life science way might be different from the global studies way, or the ESW way, or the MAR way, So we're always coming at things from different disciplinary perspectives and face different challenges in the schools. But I think we all come together in quite a collegiate way to try and work out what's the best way forward. I hope we do anyway. Even when we disagree, we do it nicely.
That's good. That's good to know. Yeah, absolutely. So what mechanisms do you have then for collecting and responding to student voice?
Oh, well, that predominantly falls under our Director of Student Experience, and they chair the student experience groups that meet a couple of times a term. But those groups also send representation to the school education committees. So, and the Director of Student Experience also reports into the school education committee. So I have a sort of student voice side of it, but also Director of Student Experience summary of it, which I can then feed back to the heads of department, to the heads of school, but also back to the University Education Committee through the reporting that I do. So one of the things, like for this year, we did some really great stuff. I was so pleased with what we managed to do. There was some neurodivergent students across campus had said that they really struggled when they get overwhelmed. This was raised at the student education group, which was great. So we were able to find a small space and equip it with some cushions and some plants, so that if anybody was feeling overwhelmed, they had a quiet place to go to.
Oh, great.
So, we were able to find a very quick solution to a problem that we maybe wouldn't have thought of if it hadn't have been raised by students.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's a particularly interesting one as well, with perhaps relating to the sort of protesting ethos as well that is encouraged, is wanting to maintain a good relationship with students so they feel that they can speak easily to you rather than feeling as a kind of they need to overcome and need to protest. Is that something that you ever encounter, is the kind of embedded ethos of needing to challenge power when in fact you want to help directly, listen to students directly? Is that ever?
I think there's different things. So I think the moment a student sees director in front of your name, they imagine somebody very remote and senior. And so I think we're trying to make ourselves be as smiley and as approachable as possible, because we do want students to come to us with any problems. We may not be able to fix everything, but we do want to know what's going on, and we will do our best. So trying to be as approachable as possible. But it's hard because obviously the school's a very big one. I'm not going to meet all of the students, you know, in that face-to-face way. And also, I think the ethos of the school is very much about challenging power, right?
Yes.
And it's making sure that we all challenge power in a constructive way as well. And I'm not saying that students don't do that, but like the last year has been quite difficult with the strikes, and just trying to make sure that we respect individuals' rights to strike, but we maintain communication and accessibility for the students as well. Do you know what I mean? So you're always kind of trying to balance competing demands, but for me, the student is at the centre of everything we do.
Brilliant. Yes, yeah, absolutely. That's fantastic. It's certainly something that I've noticed as well, speaking to directors of student experience in other departments, is the really kind of forward ethos of being encouraging, being happy to communicate, being easy, listening, because I would suppose because of the attitude as well of, you know, kind of realizing that it's easy to, like you say, have the word director in front of your name. It kind of makes you look a bit scary, but really, you know, everyone's lovely, everyone's kind and happy to help.
Yeah, and I think this is relating to the point that we were talking about before we started the interview, is that all of the management roles in faculty management roles are on a rotation. So heads of department will be heads of department for 4 years, and then it will go to another member of faculty. Likewise, I will be director of teaching and learning for 3 years, and at the end of that time, I go back to just teaching and convening modules and doing research. So so everybody gets, I think one of the benefits of it is that then you've got different people coming into the role all the time who bring in different energies, different focus. But it also means that you're never too hierarchical in a way, because you're not above people, because at the end of your term you're going to be back with people, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So it keeps it a little bit more collegiate, I think. But it also can then make it quite confusing, I think.
You perhaps losing track of who's in which role.
Because and some roles, some people might take on 2 terms and other people won't, or the entire, like at the moment, all our heads of department are about to change at once, so we get an entirely new senior leadership team in the school.
Yes, yeah. I've having spoken to a number of directors of student experience and sent some emails. Like several departments have a lot of changing going around. It happens quite regularly, which I can imagine being a little confusing. But also, as you say, you know, it kind of helps bring the new energy. It helps kind of distribute power. Prevents a single person from being in the same role for too long. Yeah. Would you say that's a sort of uniquely Sussex thing?
No, I think it's a uniquely academia thing.
Okay.
And at Sussex, the roles tend to start on the 1st of August. So we're coming to the end of the year now. So we all go away and do research and stuff over the August break. And then when we come back in September, we'll have new people in post. So, yeah.
Brilliant. All very, very interesting stuff. So let me ask you a bit more about your research then.
Okay. So I'm on the education and scholarship route.
Okay.
So I'm not predominantly doing research. I do something called scholarship, but my PhD, it looks at foundation year courses at the University of Sussex, and it's trying to understand why students want to take a foundation year and what their experiences of the courses. So I'm just writing up my thesis at the moment.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, trying to get my first draft together before September, and it gets all busy again.
Oh, very good. Yeah, imagine. Yeah, like lots of time over the summer to get everything done.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Well, what's your sort of route? Where's your interest? It's in anthropology.
Yep. So my background's anthropology, but I wasn't in a position to do anthropological research. So when I did my undergraduate study, I then had a place to do a 3+1 PhD straight after, but I didn't get funding. And I wasn't in a position to start a PhD then without funding, so that's why I went into teaching. But then I kind of circled back round, and I'm now doing my PhD, And thank you to the School of Global Studies because they gave me a fee waiver. So otherwise I couldn't have afforded to do it. So I'm very grateful. But I have children, so I couldn't go away and do anthropology abroad. So I guess I'm like a light anthropologist. I teach anthropology, I read about anthropology, but I've never actually done fieldwork. I'd like to. I'd like to.
It looks interesting. I want to do anthropology.
Who wouldn't? It's like the best discipline ever. Like, who wouldn't want to understand about the world and about people? It's just fabulous. I love it.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Fantastic. Oh, what could you think? You can tell me a good story from a student, an interaction that you've had.
Oh gosh. I'm trying to think of one I could share that wouldn't be confidential.
Might be an exciting protest
I could tell you about the sustainability, the climate change thing. So a few years ago I was teaching foundation year students, and one of them, Paris, who's an awesome student, he became a member of the student union. He was a student
welfare officer. I know him. Yeah.
And he came back to me a couple of years after he completed the foundation year, said, look, we're doing a project about climate change, and would you like to be interviewed about your experiences of snow? And I was like, snow? What do you mean? So he was like, well, basically they were at that stage taking the government to court for failure to meet targets on carbon emissions. And they had arranged to send snow globes to different policy stakeholders to say, this is what your children will never see. And then accompanying that, they did some interviews with members of faculty and beyond about what it was like to see snow when you were a kid. And I could remember when I was little, I lived in London I'm not going to give you the year, but when I was very small, there was a big snow blizzard, and I remembered getting lost trying to get across the playground to where my mum picked me up because the snow was so heavy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I would have been 5 or 6, something like that. All I had to do was walk across. I remember being very scared.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because it was such heavy snow, and that was the last time I've ever seen snow like that. Yeah, so and that's kind of the stuff that really excites me about our students, is like what we do in the classroom is only a tiny bit of the learning that goes on. So Paris was an awesome student, lovely to teach, but he then went on and did his degree. He got really involved in the student union, he got involved in climate change activism. He's then doing projects, and so I was at graduation yesterday, and there he was sat on the stage as part of the academic procession representing students, and I was just, this is what it's about.
Excellent. Oh, brilliant. Very cool. Yeah, it sounds very. It sounds as though the ethos of the department there's a lot of life, a lot of direction, a lot of motivation. It's kind of at the heart of what everyone hears about Sussex and everyone knows about the university. Yeah,
it's about trying to sort of equip our students to be good citizens, good global citizens, but also to try and be agents of change in the world.
Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting stuff. Right, so I've got one final question. Thank you very much for being here. What I'd like to ask is for any specific piece of advice that you have for students that are graduating from your department.
So undergraduates.
Let's say undergraduates, yeah.
So don't forget Sussex and come back. Because you can do, I think we have a really good alumni network, right? And I think often when students are doing their studies, they're very focused on their assessments and the teaching and their learning, and then they get to the end and it's like, So first of all, they need to plan ahead what they're going to do, and that planning really needs to start in year 1. Need to start thinking about what's next. Have a 5-year plan. Always have a 5-year plan. You don't want to do what I did, which was graduate, and they go, oh, what do I do now? I've got no plan. But also just to remember that Sussex is still here, that we're embedded in the local community, that there's an alumni network, that there's chances for further study, and that just to come back and let us know how you did, because then you could maybe be a role model or a mentor for a current student. You might be able to provide job, work experience or something, that you're still part of the Sussex community.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Yes. Well, thank you very much, Wendy. That's been really useful. It's been really interesting to speak to you.
No, thank you very much. This is kind of fun.
Brilliant. Well, maybe we'll have you on again at some point.
Okay, thank you.